Okay, Saturday, March 1st, and I'm on the rooftop of our building here in Brussels. We live in something called Habyt. It's like a, I don't know, like a McDonald's of corporate apartments. They're like in every major city, and you can pay your rent by credit card, and it's like a quick solution, like corporate housing. And they have this like rooftop garden here on our building. It's quite okay. I mean, there's been some issues every now and then. Dead birds that, they hit the window, but I guess that's inherent with these high buildings. But you can get a nice view, aerial view of Brussels here, and then, yeah, there's some trees here, like a forest and everything. So, yeah, it's one of the perks of this building. I mean, the area, though, like I said, the area is like a Legend and Will Smith. During the day, it's okay, but at night, it's quite unruly. It's quite congested. You can see a lot. It doesn't really have that much green area for the kids. I mean, this rooftop park is okay, but I don't know. My first impressions of Europe came from Norway, so it's just really hard to see anything different. Like, yeah, here you can see some pigeon bit the dust, smashed the window. And they're building some restaurant here, but I think they could probably put up some nets here or something to keep the birds out. I mean, the birds, if you put a colorful net, the birds actually can sense it and change course. I mean, if it's like a fishing line color and clear, they'll of course get tied up in the nets, but I think they have like these bird safe nets or something. But yeah, you can see Brussels. I think there in the background is the Atonium. There's Atonium over there in the background. And then, yeah, this is going to be like some banquet hall or a restaurant or coffee shop, or maybe a combination of the three will be here. So, yeah, we're going on 1 month in this place. Yeah, it's been a month since we moved in. So it takes 21 days usually to adjust. It's feeling more like home. There's still a lot of complexity. I guess I'll just start where I'm at in the immigration. So I've gotten my freelance company set up. I got the VAT number, got the bank account. I'm eligible to buy health insurance. I think they do it every quarter, so I've crossed that wicket, I think. I'm not sure. I've got a meeting next week with someone about the health insurance. And then I got to buy business insurance for my freelance company to start my job. But I think anyway it's required. They have like all these like little insurances you got to buy here. I thought paying half of your salary in tax would be enough. So you pay half your salary in tax, and then you pay some, $15 a month for health insurance, and then you pay some $100 a year for this business insurance. And I'm not sure what it protects me from. If I really screw up at the job, they're just going to fire me. I don't know if they're going to come and sue me for anything. I'm not in that kind of job where, I would, I'm not sure. I guess it's just, it's a racket. These things are all like rackets. They get a penny from everyone, but if you have like 8-9 million people getting a penny from everyone every year, it's a lot of money then. I don't know. Taking little pennies here and there from people. So it seems like a racket. Every country's got a racket of some sort going. Just some have more than others. Some are more overt. Like in Norway, they just put taxes on everything, and you don't have to go and apply for the racket. You just get racketeered or racket, whatever. But here it's a little bit different. I'll just give you some more views. Where we are in the immigration process, yeah, it's moving along. I'm still waiting for my ID card. I'm waiting for the Belgian ID card. I think that unlocks. It's like a video game. You get one thing, and then you got to get another thing, and then you unlock different levels as you keep getting these things until you're fully settled here, and then you're taking part in the system. So it's like a French system. It's just a lot of unnecessary complications. Like I said, compared to Norway. Norway, everything is like streamlined. They build everything around the person, like making sure the person can get to work and the person doesn't have to bother with the government so much. But here it's like dealing with the king. So, yeah. Now I guess on to the bigger thing. Reacting to this Zelensky-Trump meeting. And I actually watched the whole thing. You know, this I didn't get secondhand information. I watched the whole thing live. I was kind of hoping Zelensky would take the deal. Anyway, we'll talk about that. I first want to talk about Trump's comments, because I meant to talk about this today. I didn't know the meeting was going to go off the rails, but I want to talk about this Trump comment about, Ukraine starting the war. What did this mean? Now, of course, we know Ukraine didn't start the war. Russia invaded Ukraine. We know that. But there is some metaphor here that needs to be discussed. I was talking to some people in the park today, when I was walking my daughter. Now, there was a détente between Ukraine and Russia and Europe and America, prior to 2020, prior to Biden having taken office, that Ukraine wouldn't talk about joining NATO. I think they were okay to talk about joining the European Union because that's economic. That's not a military, collective military agreement. But they were not to talk about joining NATO or joining any alliance. And in exchange, Russia would just kind of leave them alone. I mean, there, of course, was interference in the Far East, Russian East, but that happened under Obama's administration. And it was just contained to Donbass, Lugansk, Crimea, all of this. So it was like a less worse situation. And I think there was some kind of détente that, okay, you don't bring this up and we will leave you alone. And I'm just sharing the point of view of people who think this way. It's not my point of view. My point of view is like, Ukraine is a sovereign nation, they can do what they want. But of course, there's consequences and it can get them in trouble, which it did. When they wanted to pursue this alliance, then the Russians, said, don't talk about this, don't talk about this. They kept talking about it. And then that triggered the invasion. That was the motivation behind Russia wanting to invade Ukraine, is that they didn't want to see Ukraine on paper join a military alliance. So, Ukraine would have been in this limbo state like Georgia is, and like Kazakhstan, and like all these countries, which now looking in retrospect wasn't so bad as it is compared now, relatively speaking. But anyway, this is probably like a hard thing to talk about. People don't talk about this, but there was a unwritten agreement. There was a détente, as they call it, going on, and that was broken. And but before breaking it, they probably should put more thought into it, like having the militaries there on exercise already, or had some plan, knowing that what would happen, that the Russians would attack if they went down this road, and they should have braced themselves a little bit better for this, But anyway, that's the past. But I just want to discuss what that statement means, and that there is another point of view to this, because I like to, I live in a free country. I hope Belgium is free. I hope it's not like United Kingdom or Germany or something where they're censoring everything that disagrees with the mainstream narrative. So yeah. And now to this mineral deal. Yes, it didn't have the security guarantees, but I think Ukraine should have took a Trump talk about, America would make the investments to realize this resources. And once you start getting American companies into a country and they start building infrastructure to exploit the resources, like Kuwait and, these Middle Eastern oil countries, a lot of that was like U.S. oil companies had, paved the way. It was like even American oil company found the Norwegian oil. Then suddenly, the Ukraine won't have the security guarantees, but these companies will. These multinational corporations making billions of dollars have the world's biggest military to back them up. And we saw that in '91 in Kuwait, when Saddam attacked Kuwait because of the oil. The American military was there inside 90 days, or I think they were there in 30 days, and they had the Iraqis out in 90. And it was a containment strategy. They just liberated Kuwait and stopped at the line. Now, the second Iraq war was kind of like a Vietnam kind of thing. They just got in there and get just quagmired. And I think that's what Trump is trying to avoid. But this mineral deal, I think, would have opened the door to the security guarantees. First thing was to get the deal, get the American companies in there, get the American workers there. And these companies can make a lot of pressure on Congress and a lot of pressure on the president, more so than than a bunch of people writing in blogs. I mean, yeah, you see all these blogs with Americans and Europeans, oh, we support Ukraine, but it really doesn't help anything. It's just people writing on social media. That is hardly comparable to like fighter jets and soldiers and 155 millimeter rounds. It's I'm just trying to get the light in the right place. There's a lot of, I guess it's very bright up here. So I thought I thought this meeting went down pretty bad, and I don't think Zelensky was ambushed. I watched this whole thing. What triggered Trump is when Zelensky started talking about the domino theory thing, that okay, Ukraine falls, then Europe falls, then Russia will cross the ocean and come and get America. We have been fighting Russia, Iran, China through proxy wars in over 100 countries for the last 45 years. And I just want to tell Ukrainians this, you guys were behind the Iron Curtain for 45 years, along with Poland and Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Hungary, Estonia. I don't know if I got all the Eastern European countries, Moldova. I mean, there were a bunch of them. Slovakia, Slovenia, Czech Republic. It was Czechoslovakia back then. But all these countries were under Russian control for 45 years. And we thrived in America. I grew up in that America, the Cold War America. There were jobs, unemployment was low, houses were cheap compared to income. I bought my first house in America, near the ocean for $140,000 when I was making $50,000 a year. And I had money from the stock market. So my mortgage was like really low. My mortgage payment was like $700 a month. And now it's unheard of. That house, I sold it long back, but I couldn't even afford to buy that house back now. So this is just something, it's a very tired argument that, oh, if Ukraine falls, then America is going to fall. This was like the insult. This is what I think derailed the conversation. I don't think Zelensky was ambushed. He went in there a bit aggressive and a bit pumped, when he should be thinking about his position. And Trump is right. There's not many cards Ukraine can play. Russia has economic relationships with China, India, Iran, the Middle East. The sanctions are not working. The Europeans are buying Russian oil and gas till this day. I mean, it's still going on. Business between Europe and Russia. It's just, I don't know, it's laundered through Switzerland or something, but the sanctions are not working. None of this is working. People have to have a very realistic view of this. And this is not being pro-Russian or Russian propaganda. It just is. Europe is unwilling. The American people voted for Trump. It was a mandate. He won all the swing states. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote. Every way you look at it, he won that election. He even won votes among Middle Eastern people, the people that he wants to send back. They even voted for him. It was crazy. It's like a mandate. It was one of the three main points. Close the border, stop the war in Ukraine, and drill, baby, drill. Pump American oil and gas. It was one of the big three things that he had campaigned on. This is like he said in his meeting. He's doing what his voters want. A lot of people here in Europe wish they had leaders that would actually listen to them. In Europe, I don't know. They vote for people, and the leaders do the opposite of what the people want, and the people don't care. They just accept it. But you really have to watch this interview yourself in English. And to that point where Zelensky made that statement, that triggered Trump. That set Trump off, set J.D. Vance off about, and that had been said so many times that, oh, if Ukraine falls, then America is next. America is like a massive superpower. People don't understand. America's military budget is more than all the rest of the countries combined. We have 12 aircraft carriers. They can be anywhere in the world in 3 days. And they can be, and each one of those aircraft carriers have more planes than most countries' military. They have more personnel on one of those ships, and we have 12 of them. And then they have all these Marines and all these people that go with them, and other ships. Those aircraft carriers don't travel alone. They travel with like 8 other ships. And they can flatten any country in the world in like 1 or 2 days. But the reason why we don't do this with Russia, it's the nuclear weapons. That is a reality, because if Russia didn't have nuclear weapons, it would have gone the way of Serbia in 1999. We would have just decimated them. And this is why North Korea exists. And people keep talking about the past in Ukraine giving up their nuclear weapons. It's the past. I don't know how to answer that, or whatever, but we have to think about the future and what's real. And the reality is, like, the more Ukraine can engage America and get American companies in there and American people living there, the more likely they will get a security agreement. But they have the weak hand. They're talking about the card game. There's not many cards to play here. They've got to play what they can and get the Americans in there. And whatever they have to give for it, they give. I mean, anyway, these mineral prices will go up and inflate away, and they won't have to give away too much about it. People keep forgetting gold was like $200 an ounce, and now it's $3,000 an ounce. So when they start using these minerals and they go in high demand, $500 billion isn't going to be as much money in the future as it is today. So inflation works in their favor, and I don't know why anyone is not talking about this. But yeah, it's really important you watch this video for yourself. I've been living in Ukraine 5 years, and I can tell you a lot of stuff going on there. I can tell you about the corruption, the draft dodging. This is not Russian propaganda. There is like a real hard reality in Russia. There's like this, in Ukraine, that the next guy can go fight the war, and I'm going to stay home. I'm going to pay the bribes, or I'm going to go hide in someone's apartment or something like that and hide from the draft police. It's going on. They're just grabbing old men and pushing old men to the front lines. And it's a meat grinder. And until you are there on that front line fighting, you really don't have a right to an opinion, in my view. And maybe that's the 4% support. It's really only 4 or 5% of the men, I think, are volunteering. I don't know. I don't have statistics on this, but it feels like that from when I was there, that very few were willingly join the army. I mean, I was in EPAM, and I was working in the building there. And it's like 4 or 5 guys, I think, that I knew have volunteered, but there were hundreds of people working in the building, so maybe that's the support. But there's a lot of stuff that has to be fixed. And I'm pro ceasefire because these Western countries like Europe and everything, they need a reset here. They need to really change everything. They have to gear up for war. They're right now painting crosswalks with transgender colors and rainbows and stuff. I mean, they're spending money on this to promote this whole thing instead of spending it on the army. If you look down here, you can see as clearly as I do. I can maybe zoom in. But you have all these transgender flags, and you even have the crosswalk down there is all transgender. So somebody is spending all throughout Brussels when this money should be spent on the military, on equipment and training and salaries for the soldiers. This is this is the other bone to pick here. Like, if Europe is really contributing, they say Europe is contributing as much as America, but they're counting what they give the refugees. They're not counting military aid. If they count military aid, America's like 90% of it. It's like way out there. If Europe was really doing its part, then Ukraine wouldn't need America. Europe and Ukraine could figure all this out. But we know what the real facts are. The fact that Zelensky has to go to Washington to talk to someone he despises. I mean, he was on Kamala Harris's and Biden's side, and he has to swallow his pride and go there. Shows you something is wrong in Europe. This is a continent with more people in America, and they used to have more industry until they committed economic suicide, but they had massive industry and energy resources here, and they committed economic suicide. I don't know why, to promote some liberal agendas, and they can't be relied on. I mean, they're not reliable. Everyone knows that. So my advice to Zelensky is you better make good with America, get those American companies in there, have them dig those resources out, and along with those companies comes the security. American corporations, multinational corporations, have the backing of the U.S. military. We've seen that time and time again. SEAL Team 6 goes and gets kidnapped executives out all the time. So wherever there's American companies making money, American military is not that far behind. So if you want to protect your country, make it interesting to an American corporation. That's all I can say. You know, that's the only card they can really play right now. I don't know what other card, because there's actually plenty of historical reference that, you know, America's been around for 250 years and we're expanding, you know, when Europe was more powerful, you know, when lots of countries were under occupation, changed hands, and we were always fine and actually growing and thriving. So that was a really bad thing he said, and it really bothered me as an American that how does this guy from Ukraine know anything about American defense and geopolitics? You know, America's fighting Russia, China, Iran in 100 different countries at any given time for the last 45 years, 50 years, you know, since 1945. It's like almost 80 years now we've been at it, you know, in the Cold War theaters, you know, whether it's in South America, you know, flipping dictators, you know, putting in a dictator that is friendly to America, you know, doing all kinds of CIA stuff and, you know, special forces stuff. You know, this has been going on a long time. There's a lot of Ukraines out there. There's a lot of big Ukraines and small Ukraines we're dealing with all the time. I mean, Iran fell in the revolution in '79, and America still went on to exist. So, you know, it's just always something America has to deal with. There's a lot of weight the America has to carry. You know, they're not just fighting for Ukraine, they're fighting for a lot of little countries, and, you know, there's a lot of things going on we don't hear about in the news because it's all done by intelligence agencies and all this thing, you know, to keep some stability and keep access to resources. And yeah, and probably through those corporations that would dig up all the minerals, that would allow the U.S. to actually run some of these operations, intel operations. You know, they'd have CIA guys disguised as workers, and they'd be able to do some disruption in Russia. But, you know, I don't know. Zelensky is a checkers player in a chess world. You know, he's playing checkers when we need to be playing chess. You know, it's a bit silly. I'm not with him on this. And I think for Ukraine's sake, he almost needs to step down, and they need to get someone in there who understands the game a little better, because they're not in a situation of, you're fighting, and, you know, the person standing on top of the hill and the person standing in the valley is at the disadvantage, and the person on top of the hill is at the advantage. And right now, Ukraine is down in the valley. You know, they're totally dependent on the U.S. and Europe and any foreign country that would help them, you know, and they need to acknowledge that, and they need to compromise, and then, you know, take a breath and start building up for the next chance, you know, when Putin dies or something and Russia collapses, if there's another collapse, then they're ready to get it back. You know, that's really all they can do. But anyway, that's all I got. I'll talk to you later. Bye.